Hi, welcome to Ask Me Anything, where we answer your most pressing questions about grief, loss, and healing. I'm Mary Margaret Murphy, and I'm the Executive Director with Baby's Breath Canada. And today we're kicking off this podcast during a very significant time, Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month. Throughout this month, we will be focusing each episode on the topic of grief, specifically as it relates to pregnancy and infant loss. At Baby's Breath, we understand how isolating the journey can be, and we're here to create space where you can ask anything, share your experience, and know you're not alone. So grief is deeply personal and incredibly complex. Losing someone, especially a child, brings an overwhelming sense of loss. So here at Baby's Breath, we want to create a safe space to talk openly about this difficult journey. So whether you're grieving, supporting someone who is or simply wants to understand more about grief, we're here to help. Joining me today is Laura Aguilar. I hope I said that right. Of the Center for Reproductive Loss. Laura, thank you for joining us today. So before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization?
So my name is Laura. I am from Mexico. I came to Canada in 2017. I've been my whole life in education. And lately I've been selected to be the executive director of the Center for Reproductive Loss. So reproductive loss, it's really a close cause to my heart as I've suffered from miscarriages. And I was very excited when they invited me because I've always tried to do something for those parents who are grieving the loss of a child.
Mm-hmm.
I would be volunteering here or there, and I started to do my own grief care programs many years ago, and with a lot of research. And I created these grief care programs for each reproductive loss, miscarriage, stillbirth, voluntary termination of pregnancy, adoption, placement in grief, and infertility.
Wow.
I think that unfortunately it's a gap where very parents are not getting the support they need.
Mm-hmm.
So here at the center, what we're trying to do with these programs and with other resources like the healing process model, for example, we are trying to fill in this gap and to try to help those parents, couples, or individuals who are suffering a reproductive loss.
Wow. And I'm sure you're finding that there are a lot of families that really do need this help.
Yes, there are a lot of families that do need the help, and well, I mean, it's a little bit complicated, right? Because it's grief is such a, like you said, it's so different depending
For
on the
everyone.
person, on the
Yeah.
background, on how their caregivers handle their feelings, how they handle previous losses, even. So it is really overwhelming to find yourself with such a loss and not knowing what to do, where to
Yeah.
go. Is it normal? Is it okay? So I think that guidance and support, and especially education to society in general about grief care awareness would be, really, really important for our society of today.
Wonderful. So I have a question. So I was thinking, let's get started because I think most people, understand like what the basics are when it comes to grief. So
Mhm.
grief is generally what we hear are the 5 stages, right? So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Yeah,
But grief doesn't follow a neat path, and
yeah.
it's messy and it's unpredictable. So, Laura, what are the most common emotional and physical reactions people experience after losing a baby or a child?
Well, I would say that the reactions of grief do not limit on just physical or emotional. I would say that they are spiritual also, and
Okay.
spiritual also, and cognitive also. Like social, for example, we could say that it's emotional because, like you said, there's loneliness, there's anger, there's also fear. Fear
Mm.
is a very important one because that one could
Ah,
lead us to anxiety.
right,
You know,
right. Yes.
because at the end, anxiety is this feeling of, you know, hypothetical catastrophic situations that could happen, and
Mm-hmm.
after a loss, it's very latent, you know, it's very there.
Right.
So that could, you know, all those emotional symptoms definitely are there, but also like you said, physical. I mean, physical could mean fatigue, you know, you don't sleep well, you have trouble concentrating, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or you could even experience physical pain. I mean, if you are experiencing anxiety, anxiety could feel really, really physical sometimes, and that is really hard,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
also, what I would say that it's a very important one is this difficulty concentrating and this confusion, and you know, you have memory problems, you don't understand what's really going on. And I think that this cognitive, in a way of, I don't know, name it, symptom is really important in grief, because i feel like I feel like pregnancy loss or reproductive losses could be very sudden and unexpected, and it's very hard for the person and the family to adapt to that, to what just happened. So I really think that it also involves a kind of grief work, you know, like James Warden name it, a grief work, you know, in which is this cognitive process in which we confront, you know, these thoughts about the deceased and the experience and how our life changed, you know, and how are we
Mm-hmm.
going to live from now on.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that social symptoms always are there, like isolation, for example,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
withdrawal from social activities, you know, feeling disconnected to others, like you're not really, especially if people do not acknowledge your loss,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Like
Yeah.
we will talk about that later, but
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that is if you go to a reunion and you just had a miscarriage and they go like, oh well, you weren't that pregnant, or well, thing happens for a reason, you know, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then I don't want to
Yeah.
see you. You
Yeah.
know, like
Well, and
I
I remember a grandmother once saying to me, I'm afraid to, bring up, the child's name because I'm afraid that, it'll make my daughter cry. And I said,
yeah,
she just wants to know that you haven't forgotten.
yeah,
And I said, and it's okay to cry. So you're right. Sometimes people that are trying to support don't, fully understand. And it's good to keep talking about that child.
yes. And it's not because they're mean or anything, it's just because
No.
you know, suffering is really hard, you know, seeing
Hmm.
someone suffering is really hard.
Yes.
And you are in a reunion maybe, and you know, you want to have a good time, and you don't want, even though you love her, you know, because you love her, is that you don't want her to be suffering, so you just say something that you might think that will make her feel better, but it doesn't.
Right.
James Friedman and Russell James, I'm sorry, that's not the name. John James and Russell Friedman. I'm sorry, I always get them confused, but they wrote a book that is called the Grief Recovery Handbook, and they talk about these feelings, you know, and they say like they intellectually all these comments make sense to the person, but emotionally it is devastating, right? I
Right.
mean, intellectually it makes sense that, you know, it was a good thing that it didn't happen far beyond the pregnancy, you know.
Mm.
Intellectually makes sense that, you know, at least I can get pregnant, right? But emotionally it's just a little bit of an acknowledgement of what you're going through and your pain. So it is painful for the person who's going through that reproductive loss. So
Yes.
I would say that social symptoms are there, and also the spiritual ones,
Mm.
right? Like
Hmm.
after a loss, especially the death of a someone we love, it's all this questioning about faith and beliefs, and you know, the
Hmm.
the meaning of life also, right? Like
Right.
where is my baby, you know, where is my mom, where is my husband, and why did this had to happen, you
Yeah.
know? And I'm angry why this had to happen, and now I have to do everything on my own and assume all these new roles in my life, and it is
Hmm.
very hard. So I would say that this coaster of emotions and overwhelming, unexpected, you know, feelings that are happening inside us are very create a lot of confusion, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very hard indeed for the very person.
For sure. One thing that I wanted to bring up was PTSD because we're
Yes.
hearing that more and more
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
families that I know a family that um, every time they hear a siren,
Hmm.
an ambulance, she
Yes.
has a reaction to it. And it stops her, like, how do you get through something like how, moving forward with that when,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
It is
Um,
difficult. And
and
you have all these triggers that you maybe
yes,
don't
triggers.
understand, where they're
Why?
coming from. It could be a smell, a song, whatever, right? And you're
Hmm.
like, what is going on? And you don't really understand what is happening. And I
Right.
believe that the person needs a little bit of guidance, about what they are going through is normal. It's okay, even,
Hmm.
I mean, you're grieving, right?
Right.
You're having this unexpected, overwhelming reaction to a loss that you just had, and it's very hard to deal with it, right? Like,
Yeah, it
exactly.
is. And
Yeah.
I think we have to acknowledge that there is no timelines when this
No.
comes.
Yeah.
This
Yeah, exactly.
it could be I remember when I first started this job, and I had a woman who reached out, and it had been 25 years and she was still struggling.
Yeah.
And so there is no timelines. And I think the best thing that you could do is obviously seek help. We will, when we share this video, we'll put in the notes, how to get a hold of your organization, because I believe, I think I remember you saying that you provide obviously grief counseling, but is there a cost for that? Uh,
No, 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 no.
okay,
It's not really counseling. It's just pure support.
support, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And no, it's for free.
Okay,
It's for free, and everybody, every individual, couple, or family who has gone through reproductive loss could have that support. Yeah.
wonderful. So we'll put in the notes your website and how to get a hold of you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank you today for talking about this incredibly hard topic. There is, as you said, no right way to grieve. So whether you're in the early stages of loss or you've been grieving for years, your feelings are valid and your journey is unique.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so we will be back next Tuesday, October 8th, at 11 a.m. So we're going to figure out Facebook Live in the meantime, and we'll be discussing coping strategies. But before we go, I just want to leave you this thought, which is healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying the memory of your loved one forward with you always. So I want to thank everyone who's watching this video and listening to Ask Me Anything. We're here to support you, answer your questions, and create a community where no one has to grieve in silence. So if you found this video helpful, please share it with someone who needs it. Until next week, take care of yourself and of each other. Thank you, Laura, for joining me today, and I look forward to chatting with you next week.
Thank you. Bye.